Hello world, I am Retro Indie Josh, and today we are checking out Gravity Circuit. I purchased this game for $15.29 USD on Steam. It's also available on other platforms. I know Switch and PlayStation, possibly Xbox. Now, I should say this is definitely my kind of game, so you may think I'm a little bit biased, but personally, I think that means that I will be even more critical of the game because I have played so many of these Mega Man likes, particularly indie games attempting to recreate the magic of those classic retro Mega Man games. So, Gravity Circuit. It is a love letter to a lot of Mega Man games, most particularly Mega Man Zero, but definitely stands out on its own. Basic mechanic is running and jumping and punching, so you primarily stick to melee attacks as opposed to the usual ranged attacks of Mega Man games, although you do get a hook shot, which not only allows you a weaker ranged attack, but you can also use it to cling on to ceilings and swing along and all sorts of cool things. So in addition to the punching mechanic in Gravity Circuit, you also have sort of a Super Smash Bros. Inspired special moves system, and these special moves are called bursts. So the reason I say this is Super Smash Bros. Inspired is that you have 4 input slots. You have a neutral burst, you have an up burst, a down burst, and a side burst, just like the special moves in Super Smash Bros. The energy system is interesting. It's a little bit complicated at first, but once you get used to it, it makes a lot of sense. So every burst that you use burns up 1 energy charge, and to replenish the energy charge, you need to collect energy pickups, but they're not one-to-one. Instead, you pick up an energy pickup and it charges your energy meter, and when that gets to 100%, you get another energy charge. It's a little bit more complicated than the energy system from Mega Man games, where you simply have weapons using a different amount of an energy bar, but it's nice because you always know exactly how many bursts you have. There's even a cool feature that you can turn on that shows you the number of bursts you have near your character, so you don't have to look up into the corner to see if you have a burst available. The nice thing is, as you unlock these burst chips, you can customize which ones you have equipped, and find a combination that works for you. I particularly like that when you defeat one of the circuits, you unlock 2 bursts. So you can choose between 2 moves that they have, or get both if you happen to have enough bits. You can also spend bits to purchase upgrade chips, which you've unlocked by finding the hidden civilians throughout each stage. And the upgrade system is pretty cool because you get 3 slots, which means you're limited to how many of the upgrades you can apply at any one time, but you can change those upgrade chips at any moment in the game. So for me, I got into a flow where there was a certain setup that I wanted during the stages and a different setup that I wanted during the bosses. But as I started to unlock more upgrade chips, it became very difficult to decide which ones I wanted to have, which is a fun little mini game of strategically choosing the most effective chips for any situation. As far as storyline and dialogue goes, I think the game really nails it. None of the cutscenes feel like they're dragging out too long, but also they make really good use of timing in the printing out of the text. And there are some times where I literally laughed out loud, and I can't say when the last time was that I laughed at game dialogue, especially when I had to read it. I played through the game on normal difficulty because I figured that was designed for people like me that have played a lot of these platformer games, particularly in the Mega Man series, and I will say I do not regret it because I don't think I could have finished it on a hard, and I think it would have been too easy on easy. So, normal is great. Of course, once you've finished the stages, there is a sequence of final stages that amp up the difficulty considerably. Personally, I got stuck on the final boss for a long time, although to be fair, I think it had something to do with not picking up all of the upgrades. And there is one thing that this game takes from the Mega Man X series that I've never really felt great about, but I do enjoy, which is having secret items that you can find throughout the stages that provide upgrades. In Gravity Circuit, you've got health upgrades and energy upgrades, as well as civilians that you can rescue to purchase other upgrades. And the problem with having these secret pickups more difficult to find is that if you're playing casually through the game and you miss a huge chunk of them, you're making the game harder on yourself. So on the one hand, I love that putting in more time in exploring the stages gives you an actual tangible benefit. But on the other hand, it feels like if you're not skilled enough to find those secrets, you're punished. So I've never quite figured out how to fix this because I don't really think it's a problem, but I do know some some people struggle with that aspect of particularly the Mega Man X series, where on a casual playthrough you pretty much need all of the upgrades to get through the game. The secret areas are very well laid out for the most part, in that there will be some sort of tell in the level when a wall is breakable for you to find a secret passage. So there might be a little crack, or maybe there's steel girders lining the stage but they're not there in a certain section, or the stage might guide you down a little hallway that goes to a dead end to signify that it's a wall that you can break. So even though these civilians and also the health upgrades and the energy upgrades are hidden, if you're looking closely enough, you'll definitely find them. So the overall structure of Gravity Circuit is very similar to a traditional Mega Man game. You have an intro stage like we had in Mega Man 7, Mega Man 8, and also the X and Zero series. And then after that intro stage, you go to a base, which is clearly inspired by Mega Man 0, where you can talk to a bunch of NPCs, buy upgrades, and select your mission, which involves selecting between 8 different circuits, very similar to the traditional Mega Man X Mavericks or Mega Man Robot Masters, and each of those circuits has its own unique stage. Of course, when you get to the end of the game, you're going to have the refights, because every Mega Man game has to have refights. The refights in this game are handled really, really well and in a very interesting way, but I don't want to spoil it for anyone who's going to play through the game, so you'll have to get there to find out. All I will say is that it is beautifully streamlined, and I wish more of the classic Mega Man games were like that. One thing I really like about the mission select is that there is a threat level meter that tells you relatively the difficulty level of both the stage and the boss. So it's a very established fact in these sorts of Mega Man games where you play a stage and then you fight a boss. Sometimes the stage is easy and the boss is hard, or the stage is hard and the boss is easy, or you pick the wrong one and you end up playing the hardest stage in the game at the beginning, and none of that is great, so it's good to know going in basically how difficult the stage is going to be. So if you want to start with the easiest one, you can find the one that's easiest and go for that one. Or if you want to get the most difficult one out of the way, you can do that too. But it's nice that there's a way to choose between the stages rather than just picking at random when you start out. The stages are all incredibly unique. They all have their own unique enemy types. There are maybe 2 or 3 that get repeated throughout the stages, but for the most part, you will find brand new enemies and brand new environments, not only visually, but also mechanically. So in Break Circuit, you'll find a ride armor and there's breakable blocks, as well as breakable platforms. In Wave Circuit, you've got springs and spike boxes and launching platforms. In Shift Circuit, you've got a moving level with obstacles to avoid and a hoverboard, and so on and so forth. Every level feels unique. It doesn't just look unique. And I think that's an element that makes the classic Mega Man games great, but in modern indie games inspired by them, they often miss that point. Boss fights are really intense, and going along with the themes of the stages, they implement the mechanics to really test you on how well you've mastered them, which is exactly what a boss should be. They all have very clear patterns, so they follow the traditional Mega Man arc of you going in and having no idea what's going on, getting completely slaughtered, but then slowly figuring out this is when they do that, and that is when they do this, and then suddenly you're defeating them without even taking a scratch. The game is relatively short. I finished it in 3.5 hours of gameplay time, but it offers a ton of replayability. There are specific challenges, and some of these challenges are really, really hard, so you will have to definitely master the game if you want to get 100%. There are special chips that enemies and bosses and characters drop that you can turn in to get a little bit more info about them, and once you've finished the game, you unlock a New Game Plus, where you can carry over all of your unlocked items and start a new run. And there's also Circuit Mode, which is a really interesting twist that allows you to use your health for burst energy. So even though the game is short, it gives you a lot of opportunity to replay stages and find more secrets. It's easy to get into, it's very intuitive, it's not particularly hostile, but it is deep enough that you will have to play it again and again and again before you can really master the game. It provides a beautiful challenge ramp and a variety of options so that even if you get stuck, there's always something else you can do. There's a new chip you can buy, there's a different stage you could go to. It's overall a very well-designed love letter to the series that it emulates. It's abundantly clear that the developers really love the series that inspired them, and we're also very passionate on making their own unique experience. So as much as I compare the game to Mega Man, it's also borrowed from a huge legacy of all sorts of retro classics, and the developers really understand what makes those games great. They've brought both the nostalgia and the enjoyable experience into the modern age. You should definitely pick up Gravity Circuit, especially if you're into classic retro platformer games, especially the Mega Man series. You will love all of the ways they reference the classics, and this is a definite candidate for my Indie Game of the Year 2023, if not my Game of the Year 2023. I absolutely recommend Gravity Circuit. I rate it an A, and I hope you'll enjoy it too. So those are my thoughts on Gravity Circuit. Hope it was informative or interesting or entertaining, or at least brought your attention to this amazing game. If you've played the game, make sure you share your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear what you thought about it. If there's anything great about it that I missed, or maybe you want to argue against some of the points that I made, I would love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the bell for notifications of my future videos. I post content about retro and indie games every week. I am Retro Indie Josh, and I will see you in the next one.